And Irving against LeBron is even bigger.
So that's the problem. You're putting up a heel against a heel, if we're talking wrestling terms. Joel Embiid is the face in that matchup against the Lakers. You get the guy that everybody wants to root for against LeBron James. Where when it's Brooklyn, it's like, well, we fucking hate all three of these guys plus LeBron.
Yep. Good, Jordan, go ahead. You're good. All right. Yeah, but people hate LeBron more than they hate those guys in large part.
Yeah, but it's still a heel-heel matchup.
I don't know what heel-heel even means. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA strategy show presented by No House Advantage. I am Dave Loughran. On the Twitters at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by, as always, Joshua Engleman at Josh Engleman, breaking down a 3-game slate today. And boy, if we're talking, low total games, ugly games that in the regular season we probably aren't all that fond of. Well, I got 2 of them for you today, Josh.
Yeah, this isn't the best slate of games that I actually want to watch because I think the Sixers are just massively better than the Wizards, and I don't have a ton of interest in it, but I've been harping on that sort of point for a month and a half now. Hawks Knicks is fun in that they're relatively evenly matched. I don't particularly think either of the two teams are good, or at least all that good. And then in theory, Utah should just beat the brakes off of Memphis now that they're back and healthy, but we'll see, I guess. Still not that fun of a game. Certainly not one I want to stay up until 12:30 at night to watch.
No, I'll certainly be watching the Sixers game, though. I told you before the show, we had a bit of a disagreement there. I think this is the game that Joel Embiid goes nuclear. And I do think he plays a lot of minutes because last game he played almost 20 in the second half. He just got in a ton of foul trouble first half. I don't get at this point, like against, I would have just left him in. I'd have just let him play. It didn't end up mattering, but it is what it is. I can understand where you have a defensive anchor. You have to kind of make sure that he's not in foul trouble because if he is, then you're going to go after him. Fine. All of that is fair. But at the same time, you're probably right in the sense that if there's one game that you could see getting out of control, to me, before the other day, I would have said it's Utah-Memphis. Yeah. And then Memphis comes in and wins that game in Utah. Like, they didn't cover. They won outright. Yeah. And Donovan Mitchell was pissed off, right? Like, he had voiced his frustration. Do you blame him? I certainly don't. Maybe you do. I don't. I don't.
No, I'm not shocked at all by his thought process there. Okay. That's exactly how he should react in the public. That's just what you do.
Yeah. And you have to wonder, like, I wouldn't blame it on Quinn Snyder, but did his Utah organization think, we'll take this game handily without Mitchell, give him one more day of rest? Because if you ask me and you look at his response, that's sure as shit how it looks to me after the fact.
It's also exactly what they should have done. Why are we acting like we shouldn't expect the number 1 seed in basketball that had by far the biggest point differential in the league to not be able to just try to take it lightly in game 1 and make sure that your star gets back? Like, they have aspirations of winning the NBA title. If you can't get it done against Memphis because Donovan Mitchell sits out in game 1, maybe you're not that big of a contender in the first place. So while everybody's up in arms about it, I think they did the right thing. Like, just what are we doing here? They're still 85% to win this series. They could lose this game and probably still be the favorites to win this series. I'll take my chances.
Yeah, sure. I just think if I'm Mitchell and I'm telling him, hey, I'm good to go. Like, there's no pain, there's no nothing. Let me play. Then if I'm in Donovan Mitchell's shoes, I'm pretty frustrated as well when you take the loss, even though it's very possible that they come in here and you see the gentleman's sweep, right? And it's just like 4 games to 1, it's over. And then we look back and you say, all right, it didn't mean much. And you end up being right about it. Very possible. Memphis is playing pretty well, though. We got to give them some credit. Like, this team is firing on all cylinders at the right time.
They're good. They're just so young. This experience should be fantastic for the Grizz, but I mean, they're 2 or 3 years earlier than they need to be. It's just great to see it now. The future is bright in Memphis.
Yep, it certainly is. Well, we got a lot to talk about. 3 games, and we're happy to have you with us. As always, it's hump day, Josh. Wednesday, we got a couple more days of the work week to go. For DFS purposes, working in this industry, there is no hump day. It's just 7 days a week. Just make it happen. Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass. He knows how it works. But hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Make it the first thing you do. You walk in here, you hit that thumbs up. You appreciate the show. you love playing DFS, talking DFS as much of all of us, and hit that subscribe as well. I know we were trying to make a push to 60K. It's going to be tough to get there, but I think by football season, we'll be well ahead of it. I think we'll be well ahead of it, but what are you going to say?
Football season is going to be nuts, man. There's going to be a lot of new subscribers come football season.
I mean, we crushed subscriptions during football season. That was absurd. I mean, that's the most growth I think I've seen on this channel since I came over. And but in all seriousness, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and the notification bell as well if you want to know when all of our content goes live. We've got PGA content today. We've got, MMA coming up in a couple days. I believe actually we do an MMA strategy show on Thursday as well. I don't need to get into all of it. You can check all of it out right here. And if you want to join, hit that join button down below, become a member, see what the perks are to becoming a member on the channel. It's $2.99. I did it. Why not? I couldn't do it for free. They wouldn't let me. All right. So what do you say we jump into this one, starting with Washington, Philly?
Sounds good to me, man. If I said, nah, I'm good, like, were we just going to pack it in at the 9-minute mark?
Great question. Next time, try it.
All right.
Throw me a curveball.
I'm going to sit on that one for like a week, though, so you forget that it's coming. You ready for this? You know what? Honestly, like, I'd rather not do it.
Catch me off guard. Washington and Philadelphia, the Washington Wizards are 8.5-point dogs, 229.5 total here going into the Wells Fargo Center. Westbrook comes into this game after finishing with only 5 rebounds last game. And I can't help but wonder if we start here, do we have to treat Westbrook differently in the playoffs than we do down the home stretch of the regular season? I want to say yes.
So I know where you're going with this, and I don't disagree that we do, but here's like the really big, interesting piece for this. And it's a part that I think some people used to miss on guys like coming from the Raptors, specifically their title season. Russell Westbrook was already playing 38 to 40 minutes. We don't really have like an increase to his ceiling because he was already doing the things that most people are normally getting the boost for. He's not going from 34 minutes to 40 and tacking on an extra 8.5 fantasy points. He's already just doing the exact same thing. And in theory, it's going to be happening less. Playoff basketball is usually slower. The defensive matchups are going to be stronger. So it's actually probably a worse environment for Russell Westbrook today than it had been at the end of the season. Obviously, playing Philly is a lot better than playing all of the morons that the Wizards played down the stretch where everybody was freaking out over their wins. Congrats, you beat Cleveland twice. It's not the point here. The point is this. Yes, it's different. Yes, we need to look at Russ differently. However, I still think he's the best pay-up option on the slate.
Okay. I'm actually pretty intrigued by Bradley Beal, though, here, too. And, one of the reasons for this is Russell Westbrook's, like you said, where you get the Giannis playing 40 minutes, didn't have to happen yesterday or not yesterday, I'm sorry, that 2 days ago where they smoked Miami. But you get the point, right? Would have. All of these guys getting those additional minutes that might have only been playing 4 to 5 minutes less, sometimes more per game than Russell Westbrook was over the last couple of months of the year. That's pretty significant. In Bradley Beal's case, though, I anticipate seeing a ton of shot volume from him again. And I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to Bradley Beal, dude, is if they're going to stay competitive, it's going to be more Beal than anyone else. Russell Westbrook, good rebounder, great passer. He is not someone you want to rely on to keep a game close against Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and even guys like Seth Curry that can shoot the lights out when he's on. Bradley Beal's going to need to do a lot in this game. He played 41 minutes against Philly last time out. He went 33, 10, and 6. So even the peripherals were up. I can't necessarily say we can rely on that going forward, but I think you're going to need to get a ton from Beal if they keep this even remotely close.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal are the two best options coming out of Washington. I don't really see how you could take a stance otherwise, unless you're the biggest Rui Hachimura fan on the planet.
Which would be weird.
You're grabbing Russ and you're grabbing Beal and you're potentially grabbing them both because for Washington to have this game be competitive, one of those two guys are going to exceed their projected fantasy points and potentially both. As of right now, I think they both look really, really similar relative to salary. Clearly, Russell Westbrook has the higher raw points ceiling. It's not even really all that close. But Beal is $2,100 cheaper than him on FanDuel. He's $1,600 cheaper than him on DraftKings. I think you can make a case for either one of them, just depending on what kind of salary you're looking at and whether or not you're trying to pay up for the center on the opposite side, because it's a lot easier to go to Beal plus Embiid than it is to go to Russell Westbrook plus Embiid. So I like both guys. They're picking up ownership. I think it's warranted. We're talking about guys that should be in like 30 to 40% of your lineups.
What about the rest of the Wizards, though, where you come in on, I mean, if you want to talk about a massively or a huge, we'll call it a precipitous drop off in salary. You got on DraftKings, you got Westbrook at 11.4. You got Beal at 8.8. And then Ish Smith is the next highest priced Wizard at 4,700. Just a huge drop off, which I think could free up some opportunity here because you're not necessarily overpaying for any of these other Wizards, but it's just really, it really just illustrates how bad everyone else on this team is, both in real life and for fantasy in most cases.
Yeah, if you ignore Gafford, Len, and Lopez, because the centers just naturally have like 1 fantasy point per minute rates or slightly bigger than that, but none of those 3 guys are you're confident in their minutes. If you look at everybody else, whether that's Rui, Bertans, Neto, Ish, these are all like 0.9 guys or less than that. It's just atrocious from an actual fantasy talent perspective. I think you get to Rui because he's probably playing 34, 36 minutes, 5,100 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DraftKings. I think you get to your boy Bertans, your twin, your man from the same exact womb, 3,800 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings. But you know what you're getting there. You just need to hope that today is the day he's knocking down those shots. The fact that he's sub 4K allows you to get there. After that, best of luck to you trying to guess whether it's a Howell Neto or an Ish Smith night, whether you want Gafford or Len or Lopez. I don't know how you rationally look at the other 5 guys from the Wizards, the Neto, Smith, Gafford, Len, Lopez, and think to yourself, that's the guy that I want. I don't know how you do that.
Have you always had the Iverson step over behind you?
No, I swapped that out right when the playoffs started.
Okay, I noticed that. Good stuff. I can appreciate that.
It's a good one.
I didn't think that. I thought that was new. Where'd you get that from? You go on Etsy?
I did. I painted it myself.
Etsy's got some good stuff, man.
I couldn't agree more.
Some good stuff. A little pricey. You know,
I don't know. That was like $6.
That's different. That's way different.
I also have no idea if I'm telling the truth that it was $6, but I don't think it was anything more than 20.
I bet it was like 25.
I could let you know in a second. I mean, obviously, like the frame didn't come with it.
There's no way that was $6, even just for the canvas. No way.
It's not canvas.
What is it? Just like
paper?
poster paper?
Yeah.
I bet it was still more than $6.
It was $11.83.
All right, not bad. So twice the amount of $6, but still not that much at all. Yeah. Some of the stuff I've paid for on Etsy has been out of control, you know, but good stuff. I like it. Like that American flag back there I got on Etsy, that was like $1.50, but it's also actual wood. It's not.
I have 20 different things that I want to say in that moment that are jokes that I cannot make on this show right now.
Well, I don't know why you would make a joke about an American flag, Josh.
It's just because it would be easy.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you didn't make it personally.
You should be.
Yeah. What are you doing about I don't think I'd laugh if we're being honest.
It was a pretty good one.
What are you doing about the Philadelphia 76ers starting with Joel Embiid? Dude, he played less than 30 minutes last game. He had 11 minutes in the first half, foul trouble in the first quarter, foul trouble in the second quarter. Doc Rivers played it safe. He still finished with more points, more actual points than minutes played, though, just to give you an idea of what you're going to get from Joel Embiid. And he is going to carve up this Washington front court. I wouldn't be shocked if all 3 of the Washington centers are in some form of foul trouble by the time we get into the fourth quarter. He was 12 of 13 from the free throw line in 29 and a half minutes.
So I, without question, love Embiid and think that he's the best overall center option on the slate. The problem is center's really deep today. Joval, Gobert, Clint Capella, Nerlens Noel, if he plays, is a value option. John Collins and Rui both have that sort of eligibility on DraftKings. So while I like Joel Embiid a lot, for a 3-game slate in the playoffs, there are a ton of potential options that you could roster at center. Embiid is 10-1 on FanDuel, 10-1 on DraftKings. I think he looks good. I think like the 30-ish% ownership is spot on. It's the rest of the Philly guys that I'm just absolutely going nuts for.
Chat saying they could cut the tension with a knife. There's no. When are you guys going to learn? There's no tension here. This is everything is fine. I just don't think laughing at my American flag would be, I think that would be.
I love that people think there's tension. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, but it happens all the time. There's times where we get tweets like, "Yo, are you and Josh okay?"
Yeah.
What do you mean? Are we okay? I don't know. I guess people don't, and I'm not talking about chat or anyone watching, but I guess like people see that type of stuff and they forget that you're not like you're not supposed to agree on everything and just kind of act like everything's always okay.
I will also say
sometimes you're a douchebag.
Anything. I will say anything, whether it's my actual opinion, not my opinion, facts, lies, it doesn't matter. I'll say absolutely anything for our interaction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Anything that works. Exactly. So who are you talk about the other guys that you're getting to a lot here? Tobias Harris. So Tobias Harris actually had a career high postseason career high 37 points last time out, which was pretty encouraging. I mean, this guy's one of the flukiest hot and cold players you're going to get into every single game. I'm just throwing it out there. It's the truth. But at the same time, he's pretty cheap here. Ben Simmons just doesn't shoot the basketball anymore. So you're not worried about usage. You're not worried about usage there. But Simmons look, I'll take that game all day long from Simmons. What a ridiculous line, though. 15 rebounds, 15 assists, a block, a steal, 6 points. Like, did you see what he shot from the free throw line?
Wasn't good, was it?
It was 0 for 6.
Okay, I was about to say 1 for 8, so I clearly didn't see it, but I knew what happened.
Yeah, he blanked on 6 free throw attempts. Like, dude, it's so bad from a scoring standpoint, but he still finished with 52 DraftKings points. So here you have it. You've got Tobias, you have Ben Simmons, you have Seth Curry, who, if he plays 32, 34 minutes in a game like this, he's going to get up enough shots, and probably most of them will be from beyond the arc. So there's some upside there. Who do we like outside of Joel Embiid? You talked about getting to some of these non-Embiid players from the Sixers.
This is the unquestioned best spot on the day. That shouldn't be surprising. The Philadelphia 76ers are the only team that gets to face the Washington Wizards. Massive pace up spot, not all that great of a defense. These other two games are projected for 10 to 15 points less than this one. So let's work our way through it site by site. On FanDuel, my favorite play here from the Sixers is actually Danny Green, 4,100. I got him in for 30 minutes. That's sort of the value spot that I'm looking to get to for today. And it's mostly because of the position. It's not all that appealing at small forward today on FanDuel. It's kind of gross. The pay up option at FanDuel is $7,600 Bogdan Bogdanovic. I think he's overpriced for that role. Otherwise, you're going to like RJ Barrett, Kyle Anderson, Boyan. So give me Danny Green at a relatively low salary in a pace up spot where it's not going to take a lot for him to pay off that salary. I don't mind Seth Curry, but I think 4,900 is a little expensive. Tobias Harris would be my second favorite option on FanDuel. Ben Simmons would be third. But let's transition this straight to DK, where Ben Simmons is the number one contender for today's slate. 41% chance of being in the optimal lineup, 7,300 on DraftKings. I want all the Ben Simmons today, baby. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think for the first time all year, you've actually made a good call on wanting to get to Ben Simmons.
Look, he's been good for the past month. 1.14 fantasy points per minute. Like he's picking it back up. Obviously, I'd prefer him to make a free throw, but what are you going to do if he's going to have 16 boards and 16 assists and be playing first team All NBA style defense? He's like Russ, but good.
Yeah, except the good thing about this is while the volume might not be there as a shooter and he can't knock down a single free throw, he's a lot cheaper than Russell Westbrook too.
Yeah.
And he could still get there. Like I'm with you. Just to be clear, I really like Ben Simmons today. What I hate is when you look at Ben Simmons and you look at his recent games, You could count on one hand in the last month how many times he's attempted more than or double-digit field goals. Like that sucks, man. If he was just, it really does. Like just going back to the start of April. When I say I could literally count on one hand, I mean it. He's attempted 10 or more shots 4 different times. Okay. And he's attempted more than 11 once over that span. You need the peripherals from him today. And what better matchup is there to do that than the Washington Wizards, who play at the fastest pace in the league and have one of the more inferior defenses and oftentimes a pretty inefficient shooting team when you have Westbrook jacking up 20 shots. So I like it for Ben Simmons. I just wish he'd shoot more, but if he did, he'd be 10,000 today anyway.
Yeah, he would. He'd be I mean, look, if he were like decent-ish offensively, he'd be one of the 5 best players in basketball.
If Ben Simmons had a 30% usage rate, you'd be paying no less than $10K for him, especially against the Wizards. No less.
He would be the linchpin of this. I mean, they would be probably the favorites to win the title coming out of the East. That's for sure.
Oh, how frustrating is that? Anything else for Philly?
I mentioned Danny Green and Seth Curry on the FanDuel side, but I actually love them on the DraftKings side as well. And I think that they are the most under-owned guys on DK. Again, Danny Green at 4K, Seth Curry at 49. I prefer getting to Danny Green, but I'm happy to go either direction. We don't really have anybody else picking up any ownership. Of those non-5 guys that we've mentioned, George Hill at 8.5% is the highest owned guy, whether that's FanDuel or DK. There seems to be a pretty clear line in the sand for Philly where no one's even taking a shot at their paydown options. And to me, that seems pretty reasonable. Like, sure, George Hill's 3,400. I don't think that he's playing anything between, like, I don't think he can get to 20 minutes today, barring an injury. So I don't really see it at the bottom of Philly, but boy, oh boy, do the starters look good in this matchup.
Yeah, they really do. Street Preacher says Laffy's getting in his feelings. No, I'm not. I'm like, as I said, I really like Ben Simmons today, and most nights I don't. But I really like him today. I'm just saying that if Ben Simmons actually was more efficient, not even efficient, because he's efficient as a shooter for the most part. If Ben Simmons was just more aggressive, we'd be talking about him at $10,000 priced up alongside Joel Embiid today. That's all. It's probably a good thing he hasn't been aggressive because, you know, hopefully he can just get you there on peripherals alone in a really good matchup. But yeah, I mean, it's personal when we're talking about the Philadelphia 76ers champion or finals odds and how Ben Simmons influences that, but not from a DFS standpoint. If the price is right and the matchup's good, I'll get there for sure. Let's talk about Atlanta and New York. Before we do, though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. You guys know, and if you don't know, maybe you're new to the channel. First of all, welcome. Second of all, subscribe if you haven't done so yet and hit that thumbs up. That's kind of one of the prerequisites here of being a sub or really just a viewer at Awesemo. But No House Advantage. Why do you play there? What's the point? Well, I'll tell you. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, you get a deposit bonus of $20 when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo and you download the app. Boom. Second, it's a peer-to-peer player prop platform. That's what I was looking for this whole time, Josh. It's peer-to-peer player prop platform where in tournament style format, as you would on any other site where you build your roster with certain players based around the salary cap. In this case, you're taking player props, right? And you're building a lineup with that. You're putting the ones you're most confident in at the top. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in at the bottom, they get the fewest points. And you work it through that way. And you put it into a GPP style, guaranteed payouts, and you win money every single day. So all of that's cool, right? But here's the best part. All of the tools that you need to win at No House Advantage are free at awesemo.com every day of the week, all the time. You never have to pay a cent for them. This isn't like we're just putting it in front of paywall for a day. Every day, the player prop tool that takes all of the props at No House Advantage and all of our projections for those props built by Awesemo himself, Alex Baker, #1 ranked DFS player. You have that right there free every day. It's a huge tool to have for something like this. And the optimal lineups tool is free. The last thing I'll say is at No House Advantage, these props are static. They do not change. So at other books where a bunch of money or a bunch of bets come in on one side of this prop and you see the line move considerably. That doesn't happen here. If you're sharp and you want to find that edge, you can find the ones that just don't line up, and you can use our tool to do that. You can compare them to the props at other books at oddshopper.com, also totally free. A ton of different ways to get an edge here to win money and put yourself at the top of the leaderboards over at No House Advantage. It's an easier way to win money right now. There's no doubt about that. Get your deposit bonus using the promo code Awesemo. Use the free tools at awesemo.com and download the app today. All right. Atlanta Hawks got that victory on a last-second Trae Young made field goal. Pretty fun game, actually. They're 2-point dogs, though, today, 213 total. I expect this game to be relatively low scoring, similar to the last one, Josh. What are you doing with Trae Young? We'll start there.
So Trae Young is like the only guy I really like from Atlanta. I got him in for 36 minutes, 9K on FanDuel, 8,500 on DraftKings. Showing up with less than 30% ownership, but I actually think it should be slightly higher than that. So if I'm going to anybody from the Hawks, it's going to be straight back to Trae Young. After that, I see this team going pretty largely over-owned, save for maybe Kevin Huerter, 4,400 on FanDuel. That kind of looks like an okay price tag. But, I mean, Capella at 8,300 on FanDuel, a bit of a tough sell for me in comparison to just some of the other guys and some of the other salaries. As I mentioned before, center stacked. John Collins for 6,500. I don't mind rolling the dice there, but as Trae Young and Clint Capella play more minutes, John Collins just isn't as good at the 4 when those guys are on the floor. He's not the same sort of performer. So I like Collins when I can get him playing more minutes at the 5. The only way that's really happening is if Clint Capella is any sort of foul trouble. So I think that Collins is going a bit over-owned as well. And then we get to guys like Gallo, 4,500 on FanDuel, 20% ownership. He was terrible in the first game. Don't really have much interest in him at 4,800 on DK. DeAndre Hunter, I just don't know how many minutes he can play, but he's another guy picking up 12% ownership on DraftKings right now. I get it, but at the same time, I don't really see the utility there. It's not like he's a great fantasy performer either. It's a slow game. The Knicks defense is solid. I'm assuming Nerlens Noel plays. So I mostly am looking at Trae. You're obviously working your way through some of these other Hawk guys, but if we're talking about actual priorities, it's Trae and nobody else. Okay.
That's interesting to me. And ownership kind of dictates the same, because you have, like, when you're looking at a 3-game slate and you see 19, 12% ownership, those are all guys that you wouldn't exactly consider chalky.
Right.
Trae Young isn't ultra chalk, but I do think it's going to be an interesting spot, because if they win this game again, it's going to be because Trae Young is having a somewhat efficient game. And what did he have? 32 last time out, 32 and 10, I think it was, in 35 minutes. Yeah. 9 for 9 from the free throw line. What, just to close out the Hawks, because it sounds like, again, this isn't a team that you're super high on. Clint Capella, really low. He's another one where you're not relying on big shot volume. You're hoping for a huge double-double. Like, you're hoping for a 20-20 game pretty much from Clint Capella at this stage. But DraftKings specifically has priced a lot of these guys down. And you're seeing a lot more salaries where it's not nearly as prohibitive. I mean, Clint Capella, you would have been paying high 8K, low 9K for him not that long ago. 7,800. Would you say it's a perfectly fine filler piece, or is center deep enough where you don't want to get to him at all?
No, I don't mind getting there. Like, he grades out on the surface. If you were looking at nothing else, he grades out individually well. But you've got Rudy Gobert for $100 cheaper. You've got Jonas Valanciunas, $200 more expensive than him. That's not to say anything about paying down for Collins or Rui, or taking a shot on someone like Nerlens Noel at 4K, or going all the way up to someone like Embiid or Randall. There's just so many options at center that it's hard to get a lot of a center that can only be played at center. So it's not that I don't like Clint Capella, but he just has to fight for ownership with a lot of guys. Could he be the highest scoring center on today's slate? Yeah, he really could. You're going to be able to get him at slightly lower ownership, but he's just kind of like owned what he should be at this point in time. If anybody thinks that they want to hitch their wagon to Clint Capella, I wouldn't try to talk you out of it, because I think he grades out well. There's just too many options at center.
Okay. What about on the other side with the Knicks? You actually have a little bit of injury concern here. Nerlens Noel questionable for this one. Mitchell Robinson's labeled as questionable. I don't see any way he plays today. He hasn't played in a very long time. He hasn't been ruled out yet, but for the entirety of the playoffs, he won't. I mean, look, I don't see any way he plays today, right, Josh? He hasn't played since the 27th of March.
Now, I'm not anticipating him being in this game.
Yeah, me neither. So do you think I'm assuming as of
Actually,
now,
he's out. He's out.
oh, did they confirm him out now? Okay.
I mean, he's out on the injury report from 8:30 last night.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Do you have Nerlens Noel playing? He sprained that ankle late in the game against the Hawks.
I do. And I assume that our ownership is representative of the fact that we don't think that he plays, because if his ownership really is 9% on FanDuel or 17% on DraftKings, Nerlens Noel is one of the best plays of the day. I got him 27 minutes. I don't even think that I'm being crazy. Like, to me, it's not even out of the realm of possibility that he plays more than 30. He could also play 18. Like, the error bars on Nerlens Noel are gigantic today.
Yeah, for sure. And in that last game, he only played 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. So right. Would you have had him closing the game out? Because Taj closed the game out, so I don't see why Nerlens wouldn't have closed it out.
So I don't think that it's outside the realm of possibility in the playoffs for Randall to close at the 5 if they want to. I don't think that it's going. If Nerlens Noel is healthy, I don't think it's Taj. But it wouldn't surprise me if they went to Randall at the 5.
Okay. But I'm saying Taj did close that out in lieu of Nerlens Noel.
Right, because they had no other choice. Once Noel was not available to be in there, I'm not surprised that it was Taj. But if you're asking me just in general, do I think Nerlens Noel is in the closing lineup? More often than not, yes. But it wouldn't surprise me if they went to Randall instead.
Okay. But I'm saying, why wouldn't they just go to Randall last game and leave Taj on the bench?
I'm talking moving forward. Like,
okay, you're saying if we start seeing Thibodeau make some adjustments, it's possible that we could go with a smaller lineup, Randall at the 5. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
They're down a game. So I think that it's certainly in the realm of possibility that Elfrid Payton does not start this game. I think we could see a very different rotation for the Knicks potentially, or at least that's what I would be doing if Tibbs were there. And I would actually think about going to Julius Randle at the 5 if I had to try to spread them out for a bit more offense.
Okay, gotcha. Now here's why I bring this up. Let's assume that Taj Gibson played all of Nerlens Noel's minutes towards the end of that game, which I think is a very reasonable assumption. That would have put Nerlens Noel over 30 minutes on the night.
Yep.
So in that event, Nerlens Noel getting virtually no ownership, being $4,000. I mean, he's cheap. He's definitely cheap. That stands out as a guy that, he doesn't have to have high shot volume. You shouldn't expect him to. I'm sure we'll get plenty of comments once again. Why would you play trash like Nerlens Noel? Well, pretty simple answer here. 30 plus minutes against Atlanta. You're not worried about Clint Capella blocking his shots and keeping him from scoring. He's not going to shoot anyway, but he could easily give you like an 8-10 and an 8-10 game with 4 stocks. And you're feeling pretty good about that. He's a good enough shot blocker. He can get steals and he can rebound well enough that at that price across 30 plus minutes in the postseason, you're on board. He's averaging almost 3.5 stocks per game on the season.
Yeah, he's incredible defensively. It's so awesome. And like I said, I only gave him 27 minutes. I think I'm actually being pessimistic if he's fully healthy for this game. And I have him showing up in 37% of optimals. That number is even higher if he gets north of 30 minutes. Like, I love Nerlens Noel in this spot today, so long as he's playing.
Yep. Theodore Parsons says Noel re-aggravates that injury, then he screws you. Yeah, but this is the playoffs. Like that, dude. I could honestly look at it and be like, if Russell Westbrook gets hurt today, he screws you. You just have no idea.
Nerlens Noel screws you the least of the guys in your lineup too, by the way, because he's 4K.
Yeah, and hey, Eric Lindquist talked about this actually in the Slate Starter article today, which you should check out. It's totally free. Him and Emac do that throughout the week. It's a good article, a great way to start off the day before reading the deep dive, which comes out later, also free at awesemo.com. He's like, you have to play the what if game in the postseason. And you're right. I know he talked about it on the tip-off show. I talked about it on the deeper dive. The whole Chris Paul thing. Like, Chris Paul said he felt a crack. They said it was a stinger, and maybe it was, but the injury was very weird. He whacked his head on Cameron Payne's arm. It wasn't even like straight to the shoulder. Whatever it was, Chris Paul was not right yesterday. He played 24 minutes. He was wildly underproductive, and it ended up being Campaign who off the bench had some really good numbers. You have to play the what if game sometimes. If you think that Nerlens Noel isn't at 100%, and I have nothing to suggest that that will be the case coming into this game, but if that's your thinking, then you'll probably want to get to some Taj Gibson at almost minimum salary, because he'll be the one that benefits most when Nerlens Noel goes down. Unless, of course, Josh said, Randall plays more at the 5. But just based off last game, and that's all I have, Taj Gibson played 24 minutes and he would get a lot of run. And remember last time everyone laughed at us for saying Taj Gibson was the best not everyone, a couple people. Taj Gibson was the best value play when Nerlens Noel was out, and he went off for like, I don't know, what was it, 40 fantasy points or 35 fantasy points, something like that. So play the what if game. And if there are spots that you think you can get an advantage, if you think it's going to be a huge blowout, maybe you pull somebody from the bench from a team, or if you think somebody is actually more injured than they are. I'm not saying that that's going to work a lot, but we've seen some wild shit happen the past few days in the postseason. I can tell you that much.
We certainly have. Like, I think it's crazy right now that we have Taj Gibson projected for more ownership than Nerlens Noel. Like, that's another side where I'm just going to play a lot more Nerlens Noel if this breaks the correct way, which I expect it to. So get to Noel, get to Derrick Rose, who's very clearly the best option from New York today, 5,900 on both sites. I gave him 32 minutes. Now, he played massive minutes last time off the bench. That's really difficult to do. You need a very specific game script as well, because the moment that you lop off 4 minutes out of the beginning of the first quarter, like, you can't get those back. So you're already down to having to play like 36 of 44. That gets harder and harder and harder as you do it coming off the bench. My first guess, if I were Tibbs, I wouldn't get that job because people would probably stop hiring me. I don't know why you continue to start Elfrid Payton here.
He played 8 minutes as a starter.
I think the more likely scenario is that Emmanuel quickly takes that starting lineup rotation and not Derrick Rose. But that's neither here nor there for right now. I don't think it's going to be Payton.
There's no way Quickly starts.
It wouldn't shock me.
Really?
Yeah. Look, I think that at this point in time, if you're going to try to play Derrick Rose 36 minutes, he should be in the starting lineup. You're staggering it for all the wrong reasons. But if you do want Rose's creation on that second unit, then I think it's reasonable to start Quickly and to stop starting Elfrid Payton, because starting Elfrid Payton is definitely not the right answer.
Tibbs just hates his young guys, man. We've had this conversation before. I think
Quickly played 21 minutes in the last game, man. Like, it's there for him.
Yeah, I think he should start Quickly. Like, I would agree with you. I just don't think there's any chance that he does. In all the years I've watched basketball and Tom Thibodeau coaching games, I've just never seen him make those decisions where, he gives the young guy a shot who could be that spark plug. And sure, he played 21 minutes. I get that, but there's more than 21 minutes available in that rotation that just doesn't go to him, even though it probably should.
And it has very little to do with the fact, like, who's starting. I know, like, that's what people like look at as if it matters. My thought process is simply just the way that they get the rotation working in the center of the quarters. And that's why Derrick Rose would remain not starting, still play 34 minutes. And you just reappropriate those Payton minutes too quickly. That's my guess is what's going to happen. But be prepared to see Derrick Rose in the starting lineup and to project him for 36 minutes. At which point he looks like an even better play than he already does now for me at 32 minutes.
Yeah, dude, if Derrick Rose at that price point gets even close to that playing time again, you're going to have a lot of Derrick Rose. I don't see any way around that. What about Alec Burks?
5,500 on FanDuel. To me, that's a price tag that I don't have a ton of interest in. He's projected for 15% ownership. That seems fine. He's 4,600 on DraftKings. Looks a little bit better. Projected for 21% ownership. I think that seems fine. I think that comes like the Burks minutes, the Reggie Bullock minutes. I think that just comes down to sort of hot hand when all is said and done. But I don't really see Burks having a huge ceiling from a minutes perspective. So I think that he's going to have to get there by having an awesome shooting day, which can happen. But I'm not totally enamored with him. I prefer Rose. I prefer RJ Barrett. I prefer Nerlens Noel. It's easier to get to, I'd rather pay down for Taj in the grand scheme of things. It's not my spot.
Okay. Anything else from the Knicks?
I haven't said Julius Randle's name yet. He's 9,800 on FanDuel, 9,400 on DraftKings. I got him in for 40 minutes. I think he looks good, but not great. And the problem is sort of just the price. I'd rather pay $700 more for Joel Embiid. I'd rather pay $1,400 less for Jonas Valanciunas. I just think that Randall's just sort of in a weird spot where he's ultra expensive, but like Bradley Beal has forward eligibility. I'd rather have Bradley Beal than Julius Randle today. Tobias Harris is $2,400 cheaper than him. I'd rather have Tobias Harris than Julius Randle today relative to salary. He's just sort of in like a salary no man's land. I like him. He's got a raw point ceiling that looks good, but he didn't look good in game one. He's already pulling about 25% ownership on DraftKings, 30 on FanDuel. I think both of those numbers are slightly too high.
All right. We got 2 down, 1 to go. Before we do, let's hit on the Hall of Fame. Not as big of a showcase as usual, but we still want to throw it out there because, well, you guys deserve it. If you use the Awesemo avatar, you go to awesemo.com/avatar and put it on whatever site you're playing at. Place top 3 in a tournament of 5,000 entries or more. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Every single thing we've got on the site, free month, you got it. Now this could be, you could win like $40 in the piggy bank placing top 3 and you still got it. So like your subscription is worth 2.5 times more than you won. It doesn't matter. You still get the W. But you have to tweet it at Awesemo HOF, Awesemo Hall of Fame. Include Josh and myself in it just so we can see this, make it easier, and be happy for you as well. But let's get started. We've got number 1 on the list. I thought it was Rinpack sending in $165. I was like, all right, that's not like him, but here you go. Hunter.
Must have been having a down week or two,
Yeah. In the fast break, Hunter coming in 6th place. And yeah, listen, if it's a win you're proud of, doesn't necessarily have to be a free month, but if it's a solid one, even if it's not top 3 or 5,000 entries, we're happy to take a look at that as well. This is a good one though. Harrison Edmonds says, thanking Eric Lindquist for the Cameron Payne play yesterday. Yeah, that was huge, man. Dr. 2-inch, strange name. Wonder if that's insinuating anything. I couldn't tell, but 2nd place. Gotta love it. Congratulations to you. And the $400 dime time, 10 cents. 2nd place, $200. That's a nice little ROI there. Next up on the list, you've got Colin Akalakakakalin. Shout out to Eric on the Payne call. Another Eric Payne call. Gotta love that too. 2nd place in the 4-point play. On the night slate, turned $43 into $430. So good stuff. And then to finally close this out, our boy, Jordan Klein. I don't know why the tweet's not on here, but he basically said, just got back into playing DFS again, took a little hiatus. We know he was moving. Grown Simba, which is a funny name. I see the resemblance now that I look at it. 5th place in the piggy bank. So congrats to you, Jordan. Welcome back into the DFS game. He also included a picture of the Fat Cat Zinc bottle as well, just for good measure. So download the avatar at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF and win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You'll see a ton of those avatars with the Awesemo at top contest. Be one of them. Hit us up and we'll brag for you. All right, Memphis and Utah. Let's wrap this one up, Josh. Memphis Grizzlies coming off a huge upset win over Utah, the number 1 seeded Utah in game 1, 112-109. Ja Morant, modest production in that game. Jonas Valanciunas, modest production in that game. I'd say it was a team effort through and through, although Dylan Brooks has now put up a couple. I mean, recently, this guy has really been playing well, and I think we got to give credit where credit's due. Dylan Brooks is coming on super strong of late.
Yeah, he's busting his ass right now. Problem for Dylan Brooks is he's 7,200 on FanDuel now, and that's not the best price tag. The real problem with Memphis is that no one stands out. They're also not getting any ownership. So Memphis is my least favorite team of the 6 today, but I also still think that they're under-owned, which is pretty hard to think about. So I think Joe Val at 22% is under-owned at 8K on DraftKings. I think Ja Morant at 14% is slightly under-owned. Dylan Brooks at 17, slightly under-owned. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 5,700. If he's 10% owned, that right there is your GPP guy for today. He's really good if he could stay out on the floor. If he's not going to get any ownership, that's what GPPs are for. Play Jaren Jackson at 5,700, because if this game is going well and Jaren Jackson can play 30 minutes, he's going to be an essential part of your lineup at very minimal ownership. I think Memphis is getting underrepresented, probably because of their salaries. But oddly enough, I think that opens them up to be rostered slightly more. I never expected my worst team to be good GPP options, but that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. I like that. And it makes sense to me. Now, it doesn't Well, they're your worst team, sure, but it appears they're everyone else's worst team, right? So I guess a good way to look at this is they're a worse team for everyone else than they are for you, even though they're your worst team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's I wouldn't have expected it at all. And like they're basically tied with Atlanta in terms of my overall thoughts, but even still, like I like it if they're going to be all super duper under owned. But the Jaren Jackson one in particular, give me him for 10% ownership for sure.
Okay. I can appreciate that. We hit on both of our bets yesterday on the deeper dive. If you were checking that out, we hit the over on Brooklyn and Boston quite easily, and Lakers laying that 1.5 points. It moved to 2, but it didn't matter. We won that one anyway. I think in this spot, Josh, the Utah Jazz win handily. You got Donovan Mitchell back. I know Memphis is playing well, and I know we have some tournament interest in them, which makes complete sense given their complete lack of ownership here across the board on a slate that only has 3 games. But I think Utah comes in and levels this series up, and they do it in pretty dominant fashion today. I just think, especially with Donovan Mitchell back, this is one of those teams that, yes, Memphis is far outmatched, and there should be no overreaction from last Sunday's game.
I share the same sort of thought process. I very much think Utah rights the ship here. With that said, that's not how I play DFS, and
Sure.
I will happily. Oh, no, I hear you. I'm just from the opposite side of that. Like, while I do think Utah is going to win this game and they can win it pretty handily, I just think Memphis is going underrepresented from an ownership perspective. The part that scares me the most, and this is something that we've talked about a little bit, I think this game could become a blowout without Utah having to play very well. This could be the defensive blowout where Memphis can't get anything done offensively. Utah just plays a normal game, but Memphis just doesn't get there from a stats perspective. And then no one looks that good in this game. That is what I think is the more likely scenario here, where Utah's defense turns it on. Memphis stinks. Utah's offense stinks, but it's still not competitive in the end.
If it's not competitive in the end, is there anything we can do to kind of account for that? If we're playing the what if game, I know it's tough, but it worked with Dwayne Dedman, right? It's worked a number of times recently where you're just kind of getting opportunities that you might not have predicted. Are there any spots here where players could benefit from that in the event that Utah just shits on them? Metaphorically speaking, of course.
If Memphis is behind for a decent chunk of this game, $3,600 DeAnthony Melton on DraftKings at 3% ownership. Like, that's the guy you go to if you need additional offense. If you need to like try to throw some shit against the wall, Melton would be the guy that I would look to go to. He's going to be the best scorer of anybody on the bench. I don't think that I go to Allen or Bain. Probably not going to be Tyus Jones or Tillman either. You know, Tillman would be the guy you would go to if Joe Val was pulling a little bit more ownership, but he's not really. So I would say Melton. If I were going to grab anybody from Memphis's bench, Melton would be the guy that I would want to roll the dice on.
Okay. I like that. And, you listen to this show, you watch it live on YouTube. I know we got our ride or die Awesemo guys and girls that are here every morning, that are on the Process show every morning, Monday through Friday, right? You guys are the greatest. You keep us doing this. By the way, we're 15 likes away from 150. So please help get us there if you haven't done so yet. But if you wanted to check it out in podcast form, I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity to listen maybe at 10 a.m., right? Like, not everybody is around to watch a YouTube video at 10 a.m. Totally understandable. If that is you, you can pull it up in podcast form afterwards. Now, granted, you're not watching this right now, so how would you know? But if you ever want to, Awesemo podcast channel, we have it anywhere, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, pretty much everywhere podcasts are. You can check it out if you don't want to do it on YouTube. Maybe you just hate YouTube. I don't know. It could be the case. Wouldn't blame
I love YouTube, man.
I begrudgingly do too. Like,
begrudgingly.
What?
Is it the best? Is it the best? Okay, what's the best way to say this? Is it the best source of entertainment on the planet?
No doubt. And here's what I'm saying though. Like, YouTube and Google and places have taken measures that I disagree with. However, one thing that cannot be disagreed with is that they have come up with something that has altered the way I live my life for the better, right? So when I try and take a very nuanced approach with everything, Josh, I mean that. Some people think I'm crazy, which I might be. But like when you think about Google, right? People hate Google. And there are some reasons, like Google's done some stuff that's sketchy. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at it, like I got a young daughter downstairs, right? 12 weeks yesterday. Okay. If it wasn't for Google, I'd have been fucking lost on half of the stuff in my life. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what's going on with her?
How to change a diaper.
Yeah. Anything, Google, right? Home projects. I needed to reroute something from like my AC system down to the sump pump because the condensation, YouTube, right? Like I needed to figure out how to do a certain type of paint a certain way, YouTube. Like, yeah, YouTube and Google make my life increasingly easier by the day. So all of those issues that I have with them, and you know, that's kind of the problem, right? It's like, well, they can wait for now because it truly does make your life that much easier, which is a blessing and in some sense a curse, but mostly a blessing.
We're basically old enough that this is relevant, but think about it now. All of that information that you just talked about, you had to hope that someone walked past your house trying to sell those books to you to get that kind of data back in the day.
Yeah,
just showing up like, hey man, I got A through Q in the car. If you're interested, man, I'll bring the rest of those letters back around the next time. But yeah, you used to just buy books of information from street peddlers, and now it's just like I could fart and Siri will be like, have you eaten a buffalo chicken cheesesteak? And it's like, wow, no way. It's craziness nowadays.
Dude, you used to have to go to the library and check books out.
Oh God, the worst.
Can you imagine the pain in that?
Imagine explaining the Dewey Decimal System to somebody. Like, I can't do it now. I forgot that stuff. I pushed that garbage right out of the old brain. But that was like a thing that you had to learn how to do. You had to learn how to use the library.
I know. Yeah, I know. And that is a miserable, you could lose books and then have to pay for them or forget to return them and then have this huge fee. You can't lose a YouTube video.
No, you can't. It's, oh my God. How awful were libraries?
Yeah.
What's the future of libraries? Like, what's the future of being a librarian?
There is, wait, the future of being a librarian?
Yeah.
There is none.
Like, obviously there will always be libraries in terms of like large scale libraries. Like the New York Public Library is probably never going to be it's just going to always exist. But like local libraries, that is eventually just going to be not a thing. What about librarians in schools? What happens to that job? What does that become?
They'll train them to be able to do something, you know, on the digital frontier.
I guess, yeah.
But some of them are so old where it's like, listen, take your pension and kick rocks, lady.
I'm going to whiff on like the total logistics of this story. But I remember it being talked about while I was still working at UNCW. It's something I never thought of before. And I'm guessing when they started building these buildings, they didn't think of it then either. Because there were so many books in the library, the building started to sink and they had to fix the building because of all of the additional weight of the books. And like, eventually that's just not going to be a thing. You could get every one of those books and put it on an iPad and just stack like 6 iPads in there and call it a day.
Yeah.
But there was so much weight that it's the foundation of the building started to sink.
That is crazy. Let me tell you something though. I am a traditionalist when it comes to books. I do not read them on a screen. I read books, the physical book. I still do. Whenever I order a book, I do not do the Audible. I don't listen to a book. That's why I have YouTube, right? Because I listen to enough shit. I do not read it on a Kindle or an iPhone or an iPad, which I could. I still appreciate. I have a strong appreciation for reading an actual book and having that physical copy. Because if shit were to ever go down, I'd want to have that book, right? I want to make sure that there's a legitimate physical copy of that book. Now, my house burns down. It's a different story, but no,
if shit ever goes down, you really need your copy of James and the Giant Peach. What are we talking about here? There's some books are useless.
No, they're not.
Useless.
No. What about Ordinary Men? What about George Orwell's 1984? Those books are not useless. Those books are not useless. What about the Gulag Archipelago? No, those books are not useless.
They are.
They remind us of what happened.
Waste of paper.
No,
I'm not saying that the work should not exist. I'm saying the paperback version of it should not exist.
Disagree. Ready to close this show out?
No, get a Kindle, man. They're fantastic devices.
I don't want one. I do enough on screen.
I don't want a car. I want to go from place to place on the back of a horse. Come
But that's
on.
different. That's different. One of them's more efficient than the other in terms of horse and carriage and reading a book. Like when it comes to reading a book, it's no more difficult for me to flip a page than it is to go like this on an iPad.
Yeah, but you can carry all of your books together in the same time. You act like you use Spotify. Why don't you just carry around cassette tapes in your back pocket?
I don't use Spotify.
Okay, you use whatever, YouTube Premium, Google Music, whatever you want.
I use Apple Music because all my shit's on
I don't think you're rifling through CDs when you get in the car any longer, champ.
No, but I don't read I don't read book after book after book as I do listen to song after song after song. It's not hard.
Maybe you should become a learned person, start reading more books.
It's not hard. Oh yeah, because you go away on a vacation and you read 17 books. Come on now. I'm telling you.
What's really funny is if I go away, I'm way more likely to read than if I am in my house.
Oh yeah, no question. But I appreciate the having physical books.
You're as bad as my wife. I hope she could hear me.
Well, hey Katie, I agree with you. Utah Jazz. We almost went the whole show without getting sidetracked, so I'm proud. We're getting there. What else are you doing here with the Utah Jazz? Starting with Donovan Mitchell back in action today for the first time, Josh, since the 16th of April. I mean, it's been a month, almost a month and a half since he's been out of commission.
So this is a really tricky spot for Utah. I thought that I would like them a lot. And then I found out that there are some guys that I like a ton and some guys that I don't like all that much at all.
Hold on. Josh in Los Angeles, he said, Kindles are too high frequency. Part of reading is to be at peace from electronics. That's exactly how I feel. When I'm always on my phone. I'm always on the computer. Being able to read puts me away from all of that. Thank you, Josh.
You don't feel like you're on technology when you're reading on a Kindle. I promise.
David Porter says, Josh, the book burner.
Yeah. They should burn them all. They're useless. They're taking up space.
Do you actually advocate for burning books?
I mean, no, I don't mind that the content exists.
Please make your American flag joke right now. I'd love to hear the connection.
I don't believe that we should print books on paper any longer. I think that's stupid.
Okay.
That's wasteful.
All right. Well, we know where Josh Engleman stands.
Can we print them on different paper that doesn't come from trees? Because I could be more amenable to this. I don't think that we should be using paper from trees to print books any longer.
You know, that
should not be a hot take.
I've known you long enough to know that you don't actually care about that. This is just a.
Well, no, that would be why I would care. No, you could burn every single book on the planet as far as I'm concerned. As long as we have a digital copy at this point, that's fine by me.
Yeah, but digital copies could just disappear like that.
Yeah, so can paper, man. Think about how many works of literature are gone now because buildings went up in flames or floods happened. We don't even know they existed.
But if the power grid goes down forever and we're living in the post-apocalyptic world,
then I don't need my copy of the book so that I could figure out who's got the best slugging percentage.
No, but you'd be able to rebuild society based on what we know from the past. And in order to do that, you need paperback books. All right, I'm done.
We don't need books. We need smart people to maintain those books because we're not making shit when that happens. We're dead. Or, well, you're not. You're going to kill people with your wealth of guns and ammunition.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, at least not
I'm going to die unless my father-in-law saves me.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. At least I don't plan on it.
You're not letting anybody come in there and take your books. That's for sure.
You're damn right. No one's getting the book by Tom Tango.
Right.
All right. What are you doing with Utah? My apologies, everybody. I shouldn't have gone back there, but I did. I couldn't control myself.
So much fun. Okay, so my favorite guy from Utah is probably Royce O'Neal, which isn't helpful, but he's the guy that allows you to pay up for other things. I got him in for 33 minutes, 4K on FanDuel, 4,100 on Draftkings. I would say Bojan Bogdanovic for 5,600 on FanDuel would be my second favorite Utah Jazz guy. He's showing up with about 26% ownership, so I would like to go that direction. But on DK, I think Mike Conley is pretty properly owned at 6,700. I think Rudy Gobert is slightly over-owned at 7,700. I don't have a ton of interest in going to Donovan Mitchell at 8,400. I think he looks good, not great. I don't know how many minutes he plays. I gave him 32. Maybe he plays more if he's feeling as good. Like, I don't think they're I don't expect Donovan Mitchell to play like 26 minutes because he hasn't been back. I think he's either just playing or not playing. But I don't think that Utah is stretching anybody into that 38, 40-minute range either. So I'm relatively pessimistic on Utah in terms of guys that I just absolutely want to get to. Bojan Bogdanovic on FanDuel, Royce O'Neal on FanDuel, Conley and Royce on DraftKings would be my focus.
Who would you say your favorite players from this game are?
Royce O'Neal, Bojan on FanDuel, Jaren Jackson, Joe Val on DraftKings. That's about it.
All right. So not exactly a game that stands out to you on either side.
It is my least favorite of the three.
Okay. I got that impression for sure. So you got 3 up, 3 down, Josh. Fun show as always. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We got 165 likes here. We got at least I don't even know if we could push 200 by the end of this show, Josh. We got about 450 people watching, but it's worth a try.
I got
DFS money says
get 36 downvotes.
Yeah. Well, people don't know that downvotes actually, as far as the algorithm goes, makes no difference to us.
Yeah.
You know,
whether I'm liked or hated, I don't care. I just don't want to be irrelevant.
Yeah, you're actually better off just hitting the like button and giving yourself good karma because the downvote does the same thing as the like button. You know. DFS Money says, do you guys have content for Monkey Knife Fight? Well, I know that don't you on the Process show give out some Monkey Knife Fight picks?
I do not. They are no longer the sponsor
they were though.
The Process show.
Right?
But I believe, now don't quote me on this because I don't want to be quoted on this. I believe we're going to start offering some specific Monkey Knife Fight content, potentially even shows in the near future. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
They aren't
sponsoring me because they're going to have more content at the site.
Yeah, I saw some rumors swirling about that as well. So if we do, we'll see. But check out No House Advantage, sponsor the Deeper Dive. Like I said, all of the free tools at awesemo.com. They're always free. Promo code is Awesemo, AWESEMO, to get you your $20 when you sign up. And remember, use that avatar. Get yourself up there on the leaderboards. Win your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Everyone's doing it. And if you want to actually check out everything we have at Awesemo, Josh, you go to awesemo.com/join. You could do a weekly express. You could do an all access weekly, monthly, annual. It doesn't matter. Single sport. We got everything. All the best tools you're going to find out there, created and used by the #1 ranked DFS player. Need I say more?
I don't think you should say anymore. I think that perfectly covered everything you needed to do.
I think it did. I think it did as well. I'm going to go get some food. Josh is going to go burn some books. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the NBA Strategy Show, presented by No House Advantage.
I don't have a lighter at my desk.
Oh, that would have been so bad.